Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the collective. We have an awesome show for you today. We had somebody that was going to join us. Unfortunately, some miscommunication, I guess. Haven't heard back from him, so we'll get him on at another point. We may have someone else joining us soon, but not right away. And we'll just go from there. Any thoughts? How's your trip to Ottawa been so far?
Yeah, it's always interesting going through multiple airports and planes and seeing the swath of humanity as it drags its sorry butt through airports.
It's an interesting piece of the culture, isn't it? Like when you get to see actually see people wandering around through airports, just like it's a different world once you get past us.
It's a different world. And funnily enough, Jason Sobokowicz had dropped me a DM this morning and said, not how was your trip or whatever, but how's things? And I said, dude, like airports and planes, you get to see it all. And I got to say, man, like every once in a while, you got to do these things to get out there and see what's going out in the big bad world. And it's pretty mediocre, is what I said to him. It is. It's pretty mediocre.
Yeah.
A lot of people packing in about an extra 100 pounds, breathing through their mouth, looking at their feet, shuffling along, not really knowing what's going on around them. There's a lot of that, man.
There is a lot. And just completely tuned out to the rest of the world.
So tuned out.
It's unbelievable. But for those that are tuned in, I just want to remind everybody to make sure that they like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. Again, good thing to do because we do this every day, and you get a little email saying, "Hey, the collective, let's talk." So I had an idea for today that.
Oh, sorry. I also should add this. My bad. Did you see me get kicked out of question period?
No, I did not.
Well, when I was live, I was in a holding area.
Yeah.
Where I confirmed, hey, listen, it's okay if I jump into a video or a little live chat or comms with someone right now, because I wanted to do my live IG chat, not right in question period.
Yeah.
Obviously. But, kind of in a holding area where they said I could. So, I went live and I did see Master Corporal Burrows jump on there. And then I continued on and I was like, just chirp. And excuse me, sir, you're not allowed to do that here. It's like, am I getting kicked out right now? Is what I was thinking. Well, I only got kicked out of a little area. I still went into question period. I still listened to it. Oh, dude, it was so disappointing.
Disappointing, right? Yeah. I felt the same way when I went to Ottawa and did basically the same thing. I thought the little tiny room of like the I don't remember what it's called, but like the area of honor, the remembrance hall or whatever it is, and it's just this tiny little room with 3 books and like it just seems it was tough. Let's not go into politics anyway, because that's part of the show. So not part of the show.
That's right.
So this idea I had,
because if we did, the entire show could be about one single thing.
Oh God,
I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, let's not do that. So last night I completed this journal.
Oh yeah, okay, right.
So 366 days of journaling twice a day. And I thought it'd be an interesting topic to kind of dive into, because
for sure.
Why not? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read.
Be better than this Ottawa tap water.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, at least it looks clear now.
It ain't tasting clear.
Welcome to Ottawa. I love it. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll read the prompt from the first day I started, and then we can discuss that, or I can read one of the.
Yeah, do your thing. Do whatever. Okay. You choose. Okay. Flip a coin.
Well, here goes with the prompt, and then I'll get your thoughts on that first. It says, for March 30th, this is the day I started last year. If I'm not ruled by reason, what am I ruled by?
Mostly emotion.
What are your thoughts on it, though? What about you?
Well, I mean, so the question is, are you ruled by emotion or are you ruled by reason? That's what the question should be prompting. Because before you read the question, are you ruled by reason? You were probably ruled by emotion. Indeed. And so as you step into that, am I ruled by reason? I'm going to use some reason today. And then the better question is, did you slip back into emotion? More so than reason. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I I'm going to read what I wrote here on the very first day,
Okay.
and it says, "Reason. Reason is a personal understanding. What I see as reasonable can be abhorrent to others. How can I be ruled by something so fickle? Can reason be constant in a world of chaos? Is it the only constant? The lizard brain can dominate if we let it, just like chaos. Training can mitigate the lizard brain, and as such, reason can mitigate chaos through training."
Yeah.
That was my point for the morning. That was first that so the
So
whole
you
topic
use the word abhorrent,
yes.
like shortly after getting out of bed.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That was when I was still like, first day motivated. All right,
Right. That's when you were lucid.
right. And I'm like, yeah, let's get this. I'm gonna
I'm
go
gonna
right into
write
this thing.
something awesome.
Yeah.
What's the
And
best word I know?
abhorrent. It was a great one. I've been
It's a good one.
quoted in the newspaper with the word abhorrent.
Oh,
It's been
right. That
pretty
is
good.
abhorrent.
So, any thoughts on that?
Well, so let me ask you this.
Hmm?
Great, but paraphrase it into a single sentence.
Paraphrase it into a single sentence, it would be
For
reasons
the
not
listeners.
reason is not given, it is earned.
I would say I would tweak that to reason is not given, it's understood, or reason is not accepted, it's understood. And so if I'm giving out reason, it's for my job to help the person in front of me understand it. If someone is giving out reason, oh, dude, are you kidding me? You've got your do your best mug right up in my grill.
Yep.
I'm out here in Ottawa without my mug, with a mediocre cup of coffee this morning, and you're dropping the bomb on me.
Not only that, but Zach got his mug yesterday. So,
Oh, what is even going on?
yes.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Good for Zach.
Yeah.
So I would say that on reason, it's for my job to figure out how to help that person in front of me become more reasonable, and it's for their job to inject the reason into me, and for me to figure out how to be more reasonable. So I think there's giving reason and there's being reasonable. So it's you've got to be able to give it and receive it, or it's a reciprocal thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. In that it is not a it's not a given.
No,
Right?
no.
That's what I like about it.
No, and you can't I sauntered over to the National War Memorial and Parliament Hill and all of that good stuff, and I can I can stand in front of the National Memorial and try to give reason out all day long, whatever that means. And if everyone's got their headphones on and they're just walking by with their, they've got their mouth open, staring at their feet, wondering what they're going to eat next. I mean, how do you inject reason into a person if they're not listening? Like they're not paying attention, like near everybody in that airport.
Yeah.
Every airport. And so they're just trudging towards their goal, which is to the next, D37 gate. So, like if you're not willing to be open to reason, you'll never hear it. You'll never get it. It'll never be given.
So do you think that the physical nature of an airport does that to people as well? Because
I think so.
there's the act of like going through security, and then there's this whole concept of like now you're secure, you're in a secure area, but you're not really. It's just you've gone through a scanner at some point, or you've gone through a metal detector. So do you think that might be part of it, is the fact that the physical nature of the airport itself and the way in which you have to get in there kind of allows people to get lazy, for lack of a better term? Just like,
yeah, well, it's kind of like a microcosm of society in a sense. So, we've got control measures in place. So, you've got to go through security. You've got to like concede to an authority, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And so you've got to go through that layer, and then you're out into the main secure terminal airport. And now you're, depending on which airport you're in, like if you're flying out of a little local, yokel, small airport, there might be all of 50 people in that airport. But if you're bouncing out of TO or Toronto, like I was last night at about midnight, or if you're bouncing out of Vancouver, like I was in the afternoon, like there's tens of thousands of people. So they're two different circumstances, which is an interesting parallel between rural life, out in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, etc., versus big city, Vancouver, TO. And so, again, microcosms. As you move through that small airport, people aren't like trying to bump your shoulder. They're not holding their line and just like rushing to their gate with their head down, bumping into people. Like no one really cooperates in massive airports.
Yeah.
It's all about them, their center of the universe. Whereas you get in a small airport and you're moving through the terminal, people kind of look up and sometimes they'll even nod at each other. And they're giving each other enough space so you don't have to do this and still get hit.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting microcosm, if that makes sense.
It is. It makes a lot of sense in terms of I've been through the Moncton airport quite a bit, coming back and forth from Gagetown a lot. And it's very similar to what you're describing in those small town airports where it is, it's one big terminal. You just walk up to the desk. There's not that many people in there to begin with, but people look up at you and they'll nod, they'll smile, they say hi. They, you walk through the stores, the couple of little stores that are there. It's more like it's not just a holding place where I think big airports are, when you go to Edmonton or Toronto or Ottawa or the large scale airports where you're constantly, you got to walk, 15 minutes to get from one side to the other. A kilometer or more. Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
And the difference is that in a big airport, it's literally this and walk as they stare at their phone. And they're not aware of what's going on around them. And I think one of the reasons is that people struggle to interact with people. Like I've seen people as I'm walking towards them in an airport, they're not going to get out of the way because whether they're in my way or not is not my point. They're not going to get out of my way. They're not going to acknowledge me because they don't want to acknowledge me. And therefore they stare at their phone. It's like that. I've talked about it a little bit in the past where a long time ago, before phones actually kind of became as big a deal as they are, we'll talk maybe 25 years ago, 30 years ago as an example, you could stand at an intersection and no one had their phone to hide in. If they were quote unquote scared or couldn't interact or had so much anxiety that they weren't good around people. So with no phone to go into the little safe space of I'm not going to interact with the world around me. Back then it was this.
Yeah.
I'm monitoring my heart rate now.
Yeah.
I'm stopping at this intersection for 10 seconds. So I'm going to check my heart rate 3 times because I'm going to interact with my smartwatch and my heart rate rather than interact with the person next to me. Don't give me a nod. Don't smile. Don't sneer. Don't do anything. Because I'm staring at my watch.
Yeah. And or the sky or the lights. Like there was always
anything but the other human being next to them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Craziness. Winter Storm says morning, winter storm. Satch is watching morning. Satch, how's it going?
Morning,
Good to see you guys. Yeah, it's interesting too. I find when you get into microcosms of larger cultures, a lot of times, especially like the airport is one of them because you get a whole bunch of people and you stuff them together and then you add stress by adding timings and security and all these things. And you see a lot of people just fold versus, okay, now I need to be even more aware because there's stuff happening. And it's kind of hilarious. My wife does this automatically when we're in an airport. She falls right behind me.
Oh, right.
Because people get out of my way when I start walking in the airport. Because I'm walking. I'm like,
yeah.
And my boys are usually kind of like trotting behind Amber. So I have this little train as we weave our way through the airports.
Right.
But again, I see so many people just fold under. It's not even that much stress, but it's just that added stress of timings all of a sudden, added stress of stuff.
It's not their normal Groundhog Day,
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, the airport's fun. Okay, so where are we? Satch. Airports are somewhat crazy. 18 years working in an international airport, I've seen almost everything. Yeah, I can imagine, Satch. That would be,
Yeah. Yeah, the world comes to you.
yeah.
You know, you don't have to go out and see the world. The entire world comes to you if you're working in an airport, or even if you're a passenger in an airport. Here's the point that I made to Jason in my DM to him this morning. Like wherever I go, doesn't matter where I am. I'm in a restaurant, I'm in a coffee lineup, I'm walking down the sidewalk, I'm in a bus stop. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, where I am in the world. I'm paying attention to the world around me.
Mm-hmm.
And not just to amuse myself, and not just to learn, and not just to look for problems, and not just to blah blah blah. I watch the world. I love watching people. I learned to love watching people behind a 10 power sniper scope.
Yeah.
I love observing people. I love watching for details. I like to see what no one else sees. If I pay enough attention, I can see more than the average person. You know what I mean? So I gamify it. As I'm walking through an airport, I'm assessing every single person. Within a
Mm-hmm.
split second, I'm making determinations. And what I said to Jason was, I observe and I assess, and then I categorize.
Right.
I'm not judging. I'm not being all judgy. Observe, assess, categorize. And then if it interests me more than that categorization, then I'll dig a bit deeper. But there's so much data stream, there's so much bandwidth in an airport that I don't have enough time to spend on one person to then start kind of quote unquote judging them. I
Yeah.
just throw them into little boxes, which, okay, maybe that's me being judgy with my 1,000 little boxes that I've got. But that's how I best move through a crowd. Observe, assess, categorize. And I do that in a few seconds for each person. And when someone interests me, then I'll spend a little bit more time on them.
Yeah.
But I'm not looking to judge, jury, and executioner them. I'm looking to observe, assess, and categorize.
I think the difference between what you're doing and judging is the fact that you're not holding on to that. Right? You're making an assessment. You categorize them into whatever you categorize them into, and then they're not quite gone from your mind, but it's just I can move on.
Well,
And now I can.
correct. Yeah, I have to free up the real time and 1 second in front of me future time so that I can get to the next person with a clean slate. So it's not right in the bank, but it's now they're 1 inch behind me, and now what's 1 inch in front of me.
You know what it's almost like? This is going to be might be a weird comparison, but clearing your palate when tasting, like doing wine tastings or coffee or something like that. That little sip of water to clear the palate. It's that same. You're like, you test it, you taste it, categorize it, cool, clear, move on to the next one. And it's not that you forget what that wine is like or what that coffee is like or whatever it is you're tasting. That it's just that now you need a clear palate to go to the next one so that it's not tainted by the previous assessment.
That's right. And let me build on that. You might find this interesting. At least I find it interesting about 3 seconds ago. Is using your analogy of coffee or wine. Any idea how you walk in that morning and taste that coffee and then that afternoon? Does it taste different?
I know I've tasted wine in the morning and the afternoon. They've tasted differently.
Correct. And so to bring it right back to the near term, so when you taste that coffee and then 5 minutes later, does it taste different? To me, it does, because there's thermal decline. And so I use the morning to afternoon comparison to make a better case for as I'm sort of observing, assessing, and categorizing. Let's say I just walked out of the hotel. I'm good to go. I'm not fatigued. I'm fun. I'm excited. I'm into it. And then 8 hours later, as I've been dragging my butt around a town, and now I'm tired, and I'm tired of people, perhaps. Now I'm having to observe, assess, and categorize with, we'll call it fatigue, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So my thermal decline has shifted in my coffee cup. When I first got it, it tasted one way. And then over a period of time, the coffee changes for me. Even though it's still the same coffee, it's changed based on timeline. And so I think that's something that people should consider when you step out of your house in the morning. How you observe, assess, and categorize might be different. It isn't for me, but it might be different for people out there towards the end of the day when they're fatigued, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I recognize this pretty quickly. I do this myself when I'm, out and I'm wandering around. If I am, as you say, right, and into it, right, and I'm like, hey, good day, let's rock and roll. My assessments of people are very different than when I am fatigued, and when I'm trying to, especially if I'm trying to make a hole. If I need to go somewhere, the assessments are very different. And it's a different.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden you're that guy, like, just charging down the airport in a linear fashion with just a single objective in mind, which is terminal D37 or whatever. And you're not that aware of what's going on around you because you're fatigued. You're kind of over the day. You just want to get to the plane where you can then pass out with half a bag of pretzels and then look forward to getting wherever you're going. And I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. And so I guess if we were going to add that extra logical leap, it would be this. It's our job when we step out of the door in the morning to stay pretty even keeled on our observe, assess, and categorize.
I totally agree. The real benefit of that too is that, again, it's similar to what we were talking about yesterday, is that there is the intention, right? You're taking the time to start your intention early and say, I'm going to have a good day today. And then even if or I'm going to help somebody today, or I'm going to do a good deed today, or I'm going to really enjoy the walk through the airport today, right? You're being intentional about how you're dealing with your time rather than rushing or not rushing or being, trying to think of the word, but I can't think of it, when you are passive, basically allowing things to just happen, right? And I've seen this over and over and over again. I'm much better now when I'm in the airports.
So that was going to be my next logical leap.
Okay. Hit me.
So to build off of that, I would say that, I gave the example of you step out of the hotel or wherever your house in the morning, your office building in the morning, and you're like, yeah, I got this. I'm doing this, and I'm excited, and my head is good, and blah, 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 whatever. Observe, assess, and categorize. And then 8 or 12 hours later, you're kind of over it, and you're not observing, assessing, and categorizing well. And so that's not a bad thing if you understand that that's what's happening. So what I'm saying is that you've got to observe yourself throughout the day and day after day to understand your pattern of, in the mornings, I'm pretty solid. In the afternoons, I'm a bit weak. And then in the evenings, I'm pretty solid again, or whatever. I ate too much carbs. My lunches are too big or heavy. I get a bit dumb because of the carbs. You got to form your pattern. And then over time, you can say to yourself, you know what? I'm kind of dropping the ball towards the end of the evening. How do I improve on that? Now that I'm aware of my pattern, how to improve my pattern. And that could come down to something as simple as, I've observed, assessed, and categorized myself. Now I understand my weak area or my area to improve upon. Now I'm going to add a little bit of heat to that. I'm going to focus on that a little bit more with some intention, see if I can raise my game in the evenings, as an example. And so if you can't do it in your own head, like, okay, I see the pattern, that's now changed. Bam. And you're off to the races. You never backslide ever again. Maybe. Or it could be something as simple as, I kind of backslide in the evenings, and I'm not sure how to change that. I've spent a couple of weeks or a couple of months trying to do it better, and I still can't. Well, now I've got to address am I hydrated? Am I eating properly? Am I getting enough this? Am I getting enough that? My sleep, my blah, 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 all of the things. Or maybe in the evenings, it's a case of, I can't go back to back to back to back to back meetings and then go back to back to back to back issues at home and then back to back to back. And so maybe a person has to look at themselves and think, I need to inject a decompress phase so that I can kind of come out of that decompress phase at a particular timing to be able to meet either my obligations or what I know is upcoming that evening, so that I'm feeling a little bit more like my, ooh, look at me go in the morning.
Yes, I did exactly that with the help from my psychologist and dealing with all this other stuff. Was I didn't like crowds, and airports especially. They're full of crowds, right?
Yeah, they're a bummer.
And it was very challenging for me to get involved in that. And I at one point I was just like, well, I'll never be in a crowd again. But that's one choice, but that's a large portion of life.
A choice, yes.
That's a choice, right?
Yeah.
It's not a great choice. And then I dealing with my psychologist, it was over time. I just, okay, well, how about a group of like 8? How about a group of 12? And just I slowly worked myself up to the point that, depending on how the crowd moves now, I can assess it and work my own psychological magic, my own little Jedi mind tricks, and be like, okay, well, how about we move around the crowd rather than walking through the crowd? How about we assess the crowd as a general, like, what does it look like? Are people agitated? Are they moving? Are they not? Is it, happy-go-lucky? Is there lots of noise? Is there not? Da, da, da. And it's the same concept. You just assess and you categorize people. You categorize that section of time or whatever it is you're doing. Now we have a comment here, which I think is accurate. Shaun is a Terminator.
I am
constantly scanning, which I love.
I am.
And I was picturing that exactly with the Terminator, the red eyes, just
dude, I'm constantly yeah. And you know what? I've always been like that, always. Yeah. And the military just reinforced it. And I can walk down the sidewalk, and that's precisely what I'm doing. But what I have to do nowadays, because I don't want to scare anyone, I don't want to like make everyone stare at their feet. I try to do it in a way that I'm pretty casual. I'm not all up in their grill with my Terminator 9000 stare. I'm generally looking pretty pretty casual, pretty almost smiley, but not. Whereas prior, years back, I'd have the Terminator scan with the Terminator look. That ain't good. You just don't get people get scared.
Yep. I had the Terminator look on my face for a very long time walking around, and people do get scared. We talked about this the other day when I said, people would cross the street to go around me. And absolutely, if you got that stare, that's what's going to happen. Now, I have a special guest for you, Shaun. Are you ready?
Ooh,
I know, fancy dancy. We got Seerat coming for me, a man of words.
Well, buddy, how you doing?
We're going to talk a little bit
fantastic.
about BJJ. So prepare yourselves, everybody of the world. We're going to talk about his first day on the mats. So, Seerat, let's hear it. What was it like? What was your first day like?
Honestly, it was. I went in with an open mind. My whole work up to this was just speaking with Satch, watching Shaun talk about it, seeing videos from Seb, and I was casually driving home one day, and right outside my neighborhood, I saw a banner saying, BJJ 30-day free trial, and I think it's just the universe speaking to me at that point. And as soon as I got home, looked the place up, called them and said, I want to sign up for your first class. And it still was brand spanking new when I walked in there. You could tell it's still under construction. I think there may have been 4 people in the class. But the workup of going in there was, your mind's racing. You don't know what to expect. And the last time I did any kind of martial arts was when I was a kid. So going in there a lot older with more aches and pains, you have the reservations, like, am I going to be able to keep up, especially when you start seeing a lot of the younger adults at it. But no, I told myself, I go, the only thing I could do in this, it's about mindset. Don't psych myself out. It's just go in, open mind. I'm here to learn. Don't let any of my past experiences make assumptions about anything. I come in, I'm going to be a sponge. And that was just my mindset going in. And honestly, I had fun with it. I learned a lot with it. and it blew my mind. I don't know what else to say. The whole experience blew my mind.
That's outstanding. Any questions for him, Shaun, right off the bat?
Well, first I'd like to say this. Awesome, pal. I mean, I know that it takes a lot of courage to do what you did, especially as an older man, an older individual, an older athlete, we'll call it. It takes a lot of courage to step onto the mats because you've seen enough, you've heard enough, you know that it's not quite a trial by fire, but it's as difficult as you want to make it. And so, as you've heard in the past, if you want to have a good time on your first night, go in trying to have a good time rather than go in to take care of business. And so I think, and why I say it's courageous is because in order to step onto the mat and have a good time, you've got to get right with your ego and say that, dumb words like, I'm not the man, or I'm not going to crush anyone, or I'm not going to kick ass, or you got to kind of flip the script on the ego and say, yeah, I kind of suck and I'm going to get my ass whooped. And this is not going to be what I think it's going to be. I'm just going to be open-minded and try to have fun. And that's hard for a lot of men that I've met. And I'm not drawing that comparison to you, though I can say reasonably with reasonable confidence that most men that I've met struggle in that first night because in their mind, it's going to play out a whole lot different than it actually plays out. So good on you.
Accurate. Yep. Seerat, what was what do you think? So you've had what, a day now, 2 days to kind of think on it, or how long has it been since was it yesterday, last night, your first day?
No, it was 2 days ago. So
2 days ago. Okay.
I woke up yesterday just a little sore. I woke up today and I'm sore in muscles I didn't even know I had.
But that's called DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness.
I like it.
But it was an hour class, but I can honestly say I had a full body workout. Honestly, just the whole setup of how it was, there was no easing into it, kind of, in the sense that, okay, we had our little cardio warm up, but it's like, okay, I just had a quick rundown that I want you to practice this, I want you to practice that, and baptism by fire. It's like, get on your back, and I want you to try to fight me off, right, or not, or I can't let you pass my guard, kind of thing, right? And it's amazing that how tired you get and how much you think you could fight somebody off, and in the end their patience will and their experience will overmatch you. And it was a humbling, it was an eye-opening experience, and to try to do it yourself and just to even watch some of the more experienced members that were sparring and the intensity in which they were going at, and how you could see that they were thinking, like they were calm, there's focus on breathing, and you could see that they were trying to play chess in their head about what do I need to do to extricate myself from the situation. And if there was ever a way of kind of just expressing what a tactical situation was and just how fast it moves, I think this encompasses it, because you're tired, you're fighting fatigue, right? You're in a defensive position, right? You need to kind of hold your ground, and at the same time, you need to try to figure a way that you can get out of the situation while dealing with all of those things. And I have a newfound appreciation for it, and it was reinvigorating for me, in the sense that you kind of see something, and when you're kind of put to the test, and it's like, okay, I still got it in me that I want to learn, I want to get better, and I want to keep going at it.
That's so freaking awesome.
That really is.
So let me ask you this question. You got a full body workout. I mean, I'd have put $1 million on that before you showed up, put your foot on the mat. And I kind of expected that it'd be a 48-hour period until you felt that DOMS. And so my question to you is this: which do you think was a bigger workout for you? the physical workout, or the workload, we'll call it, of physical activity on the mats, or the mental workload that you put into it, the actual psychological and emotional, we'll call it, processing, either before, during, or after? Which do you feel for you was the most, maybe not demanding, but which one do you feel the most more now?
I would say I got two answers to this. One, at the time, I was physically exhausted, but I would definitely say it's the emotional, mental, and psychological, because even now, I'm still dissecting my first class.
Yes, that's outstanding.
Yeah, I love it.
I love it.
So first, I just want to say, what's up, Alan? How's it going? Nice to see
Hey,
you.
Alan. Fantastic.
And the question that I had was, what do you think so far? What is the piece that you've the little nugget, the little gold nugget you've taken out of your first class so far that you can apply not only to the next class but forward in your life, that you go, like, have you had a little epiphany at all after your first class?
I think the biggest nugget I can take away is that I learned not to psych myself out before I even take the first step. And I think the hardest decision I made, or that I had to make, was making sure that I put my foot through that door into that gym. And I think after that, everything just kind of changed. And even the instructor said it. He goes, "You did the hardest thing, which was walking through this door." And to kind of have someone say that to you and take the words right out of your mind and out of your mouth, right? It's there. And I think the lesson I take out of this now is that don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. And I think for me, stepping out of my comfort zone at that moment is what I needed, not only for the physical challenge, but for the mental challenge.
Well, you hear us say it over here all the time, and they're just words, and the words don't mean anything until you can kind of experience it yourself, or feel that first step onto the mat yourself, and what the immensity of that moment, if you can really absorb all of it, what it can represent for the rest of your life, if you can kind of feel that first step. And it's, as we say it all the time on many subjects, just get on a start line and put your foot across the start line and see where it takes you. Even if it's only for 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, it's going to do good if you get your foot across the start line. So you've heard us say it a lot, or you certainly heard me say it a lot on my IG live chats and over here on the Collective. So you had mentioned that you had some influences leading up to going to BJJ from the various characters that you follow on socials. But what was it for you that, and just you, not a voice in your head from someone else, what was it just within you that made you flip that switch and say, that's it, I'm going to do it?
I think for me, it was, and as much as I appreciate you and all the other influencers in my life that were trying to give me the positive reinforcement, I think the biggest thing for me was doing it because I felt that my wife was speaking to me in a way of saying that you need to do this for you. Mm. And I struggled, and I still struggle with her passing. And I think because I've been so focused on, I guess, just trying to deal with everything around me and just try to deal with the world, I neglected myself.
Yeah, right.
And I think for me was when I saw the sign, I saw the proximity to home. And I think for me, it was just that voice I could kind of hear and say, you know what, you got to go do this. You got to do it for you. And I think that's what really pushed me to say that, you know what, I'm going to do it and I'm going to commit to it.
And, you kind of are doing it for you, but at the same time, you're kind of doing it for the team. Presto changeo, here you are actually doing it for the team right now, whether you like it or not. You're now part of a voice or at least a small crowd that talks about, doing things as experienced BJJers or first time BJJers. And guess what? Here's the problem. Now it's your responsibility to tell that first dayer that is now one step behind you, hey man, you can do it. Hey, it's really good. And here's why. And this is what I experienced. And my journey is different than your journey, but our journeys both get our feet on the mat. And that's where we get that common ground of trying to be more awesome with other human beings. And it excludes all of the other histories and white noises and backgrounds and all of that stuff. It strips all of that away. Janitor, carpenter, CEO, doesn't matter. All that stuff gets left off the mat. Nobody's special on the mat. You're just connecting with other human beings. And I hope that's kind of what you felt to some degree on that first night.
Yeah. It is it's a special time. I was thinking about it when we were talking about getting you on here, and I was thinking about my first day, and it's a special day. Now, like, this is the other thing. You said you had some previous martial arts experience, Seerat?
Yes.
Yeah? What were you studying beforehand?
Taekwondo.
The good old
Try
TKD.
not to talk about Taekwondo over here. I'm only teasing.
But here's the question. What made you leave or stop taking Taekwondo?
I think at the time, because I was young, and I think the difficulty was just my parents financially couldn't afford it. And and I guess the classic thing was just focus on school. That's what's going to carry you, not martial arts. And I was happy with it because I was doing it for 2 years at that point. I was moving up. I got my yellow belt.
2 years in Taekwondo, you were probably like a black belt sensei.
I don't know about that, but I was 12 and I was in the adult class, right?
Okay.
And because I wanted to get pushed and I wanted to spar with people that were bigger than me, and that's where my interest was. But when my parents said that we couldn't afford it, and you got to focus on school, then the steam kind of just went away, and I never got back into it. And I've always had that regret that I wish I kind of carried through with martial arts at some point, and I never really looked at it again until recently. And I kind of feel like the 12-year-old me is slowly coming back, and it's like, yeah, this is what I got the adrenaline rush from. This is what it was about. And it's great energy that's coming from within me that I thought was long gone for 20 years.
I love it.
I think we've all still got it in us, just as you said, you've managed to find a way to maybe reinvigorate your life or tap into a new energy fuel, that enthusiasm, etc. But, not everyone's you, not everyone's Chance, not everyone's me. And so I don't think that there's a single sentence that will help everyone understand how to tap into that limitless source of joy that we all have. We've just it's for us to figure out how to shape that. Not on the I can't be 24/7 joy. I don't want it. Yeah. You couldn't give me 24/7 joy. I only need a certain amount. If that might sound weird, but I'm just not a all the time joyful guy. How I've run my life is I need adversity and joy. There's joy in the adversity, but I need the black and white, the yin and yang, the up and down, the in and out. I need the opposites in order to understand what one means and what the other means. And so if someone said, hey, you can be full of joy for the rest of your life all the time, I wouldn't want it, because then I wouldn't value it eventually, because then it becomes normalized. And then what does that mean? Now you're not joyful. Now you're just the thing existing. And I don't operate well that way. I need to feel the suck, and I need to feel the awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree. And actually it goes into, I've talked about this with my uncle, looking at the mountains. Eventually, doesn't matter how grand the spectacle, eventually, if you see it every day, it's going to be similar. You mentioned it earlier today when you said people just walking right past the war memorial, right? they see it every day on their walk home, and it becomes another little obstacle that they have to walk through in their day, rather than like the first time I got to be there last summer in Ottawa. That was the first time I'd ever seen it. And it was awe-inspiring. I got to stand there and just stare at it and look at it and walk around these things. But if you were just to have that feeling all the time, then that feeling would disappear. And it'd be gone.
There's only two things that I've visited here in Ottawa. Well, I arrived at 2:00 in the morning today, but the first two things that I wanted to go over and give my nod of respect to was the National War Museum, or the Memorial, and then over the Parliament building, just to kind of, I mean, it's almost our center of the universe for Canada, in the sense of a slight representation of the country to some degree. So, but the war memorial was key to me. That had to happen. Probably one of the last times I was in Ottawa that was kind of a big deal. I was standing in uniform at the war memorial at attention on Remembrance Day, as part of a small guard, and so that was a long time ago for me. But there's no disconnect between young Shaun and old Shaun, in the sense of I still understand service, and I still understand respect. So I actually took a photo of the memorial and threw it up in my IG stories before I jumped into this live, literally a few minutes before I came into this live. And I just needed to stand on that ground and give the nod to everyone who served in the past, during, and in the future. And my observation was this, Chance, to your point, that's not normalized for me. I understand the thread of time doesn't get snipped on service. And so all the people that I was watching walk past the memorial with their staring at their feet, the memorial has been normalized for them to such a degree that now they don't see it. But sometime in between not seeing it and recognizing it for what it is, I think that there should be a point in there where maybe it's not a big deal to them anymore, but at least they could freaking give it a little glance and a tiny little nod. Just a tiny nod. Don't have to shoot off any fireworks. Don't have to go stand at attention like I did this morning. But what you can do every day that you walk past that thing, if you live in Ottawa, whether you're civilian, veteran, or serving, is freaking just shift your head a tiny degree and a tiny nod, and then carry on with your day.
It's actually very similar to what we're talking about with Seerat here, is that's also, you can assign that thread, that little nod, to a lot of things. And I think a lot of us, we forget sometimes of where our history starts. And I think this was a great idea when you said we should get him on here and talk about his first day at BJJ, because a lot of us forget our first day.
Sure do.
You get so deep into it and you're like, oh yeah, jiu-jitsu's awesome, everyone should come do it, come on the mats, and you forget the fear and the trepidation and the walking into the completely new environment, and then having to like throw yourself on the mat and go, okay, let's see what happens. And it's a great reminder to actually take the time intentionally and go, you know what? I do remember my first day. I got strangled like 17 times.
It is important. So we talked about service and maintaining that thread over time and understanding what that represents. But the same could be said for BJJ. So Alan Shabara was, I don't know if he's still on now, but he said good morning a little while ago. And so when I saw his name pop up and we're talking about BJJ, here's what I thought. Seerat knows next to nothing right now. And I know next to nothing compared to Alan. That dude's forgotten more than I'll ever know, perhaps.
Yep.
And so, but that doesn't change the common thread called BJJ. Just like service is a common thread. Doesn't matter whether you are a day one reservist or cadet or whatever, or tier one operator. Service is service.
Mm-hmm.
That is a common thread. And we should all understand the commonality amongst us, just like BJJ. One day on the mat, dude, you're part of the brotherhood. You may not be good. We may not call upon you right away, but you're part of the brotherhood once you step onto the mat that first day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Actually, I was thinking about this as you were talking about, is that there's a moment I think, anytime you join a group, anytime you join into a new tribe or a new endeavor or new something, it reminds me of when I got my first beret, right? And you're like, "Ooh, I get to shape it and form it, and you get to make it yours." And it's within some standards, obviously, but it's still yours,
Oh
and
yeah.
and you get to shape it. And it's similar in in your BJJ trajectory or your military career or civilian career or working your way through an airport. You get to shape it. You get to shape every part of it. The only thing that you have to kind of manage is the fact that you have to be at a gate at a certain time in the airport, or you got to be at a certain location wearing a certain uniform in the military. BJJ, you got to be in the right spot at the right time. Like, it's all kind of the same as long as you look at it through that lens. At least in my mind. Seerat,
Well, I don't
how's?
mind. I don't mind flipping this on you.
Ooh,
I
I
don't
like
mind
it.
flipping this on both of you, and then I'm interested in your opinions. So, I've worn. I knew how to take care of a beret. I had a pretty stylish beret. Had a little bit of attitude. Was generally within spec, but it was me. And so I did shape that beret, but that beret also shaped me.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is every day that I would form it exactly how I wanted to form it, it was me creating it. But because I created it, it now represented me. And by feeling it on me at all times, I knew that it was me and I was it. And so we shape each other. I shape the beret shapes me. And so I'm just going to add a little teaser onto that. And then I'm interested in whether, I'm not going to say it's going to blow your mind, but I'm curious as to what your thoughts are. So when I got picked up at the airport this morning at 0200 hours by my buddies, first name is Marlon, and we are out here in Ottawa to be part of the 30th anniversary of the formation of JTF2, Tier 1. And as originals or plank holders, we're out here to wave that flag. And so when I was on the teams, we didn't have a team beret. We had Black Nomex face masks and stuff like that, but we weren't all about the beret. But nowadays, there's a tan beret for special operations, the CANSOFCOM. And it wasn't around when I was in. And so I never had a tan beret. So my buddy Marlon, when he picked me up at the airport, as we were chatting, we held hands and we laughed. And then he said, "Hey, you're not going to believe it." A fellow by the name of Jeff. Jeff has got us a couple of tan berets. And I said, "What? That's awesome." And so tomorrow, I'll be getting my tan beret that I've never owned ever before. But then it'll be my responsibility to shape so that it fits me the way I like it, to put on my proper headdress badge. And now I'll be shaping my past into my present for the future, in a sense.
I like it. I like that a lot. That's it is a little mind blowing. It's a little mind blowing.
It's a bit much.
No, but it fits very nicely, because I really love the fact that, because you had your maroon beret, right, from the airborne.
I had my maroon beret. Well, I gave away all my berets to the troops when I bounced. But and on the teams, we didn't wear maroon berets. Really, we didn't wear headdress at all. We're so busy doing all the other stuff that I don't even know. I guess I put on headdress when I was at the National War Memorial, when I was standing at attention there on Remembrance Day. But other than that, we didn't really have a particular beret.
When you did that, was it just like a regular beret, like a green beret? Oh, okay, yeah. Just like the standard one. I did laugh a little bit when I got handed the green beret, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm a green beret." And it's like, no, you're not. Not the same thing at all. I was like,
not at all.
Yeah, it's good times. Seerat, we're actually just about almost at time here, but any final thoughts on either what Shaun's saying or anything we've gone over so far today? Anything you got hidden in the tank?
I just, whatever Shaun said about the beret, it's deep, and the more you think about it, and you can kind of look back in your career. I totally agree. That it's a representation of you. It's a representation of your time in the uniform, right, or your service. So, it gave me a lot to think about, and I'm still digesting it. But to the comment about BJJ, and I do want to pass on my first experience, and I do appreciate the welcoming into the brotherhood. And thank you for the encouragement. Thank you for the push. You know, it was an amazing experience for me, and I'm gonna do my best as a caretaker now that I'm getting into it to try to help other people make that step.
I love that. I love it a lot. Shaun, any final
Yeah,
thoughts?
I couldn't be happier that you had a great experience, and I couldn't be any more happier that your enthusiasm has re-injected some enthusiasm back into me for my love of BJJ. Sometimes you forget, like sometimes the awesome becomes normal, and so it's a nice reminder for me that all the first timers that I encourage to get on the mat, or when I'm working with them for their first night on the mat, that I can realize that they should be mega enthusiastic, and it's my job to encourage that enthusiasm in them, because at the end of that first session, it then becomes their job to pass on the enthusiasm, just like you did to me. Holy, it's like Inception. It's so weird.
Mind blown. Sat says, amazing. Daniel, better late than never, I guess. Afternoon, everyone. Daniel, good for you to join us here in the last 3 minutes. Yeah, the only real point that I had on this was the fact that we have the ability to really take into account everything that we do in life every day. We have the ability to do that. And as we forget, or as we allow it to kind of pass by us, as we allow these things to just flit off of us, we slowly become more and more like those people in the airport with their head down, looking at their phone, completely oblivious to the world, just waiting on a timing, and just letting their lives kind of slip past them, versus taking that second, even in the airport, and being like, you know what? This is freaking cool. Like, just think about the logistical nightmare that it is air flight, and then sit there and go, wow, like, I get to be a part of this. Even just as a passenger, I get to be a part of this huge undertaking in this one little microcosm. And you can take that second, and in that second, you get to be intentional with it and to figure out how you want to, live your life, instead of staring at the mountains and being like, yeah, okay, well, the mountains are right there, or walking past the memorial and never giving it a second glance. Take the second, give it a little nod.
Yeah.
Check your market in your head.
The story in your head becomes the story of your life.
That's exactly it. And with that, I think we can shut her down for the day. It's been absolutely fantastic. Great little chat so far today, and I really want to thank y'all, especially Seerat. I really appreciate you jumping on here halfway through while you're rushing home after I was like, hey, we want to go online.
Dude, how courageous. From BJJ to first live chat on the collective. I mean, that's no small undertaking.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
It is it's truly our pleasure. We'll talk some more, I'm sure, at some point, and we'll probably get your assessment on maybe your first month of BJJ, or maybe something down the road, but we'll talk later. And you've helped us reconnect with BJJ. You've helped us reconnect with a few things. So as we learn and build and grow, we get to do that together every day here on the collective. We'll talk to y'all tomorrow. Chimo, everybody.
Chimo.